that today they will see its invincible power in action. Immediately after this, he jumps forward, saying that now the King of the Crusher will show everyone, even beginners, how to fight monsters. Vincent realizes that his opponent has gone completely crazy and has decided to rush forward at a very dangerous monster. Vincent looks at the actions of his so-called partner, who is more like a moth to a flame, and realizes that he is screwed. The Knight of Purity waits for a good window to deal damage and quickly swings. Realizing that his opponent will no longer be able to dodge, he delivers a quick and sweeping attack with his sword. Liam, of course, turns out to be too stupid and clumsy to parry such a thing. As a result, he is bounced around like a tennis ball and crashes at full speed into the hardened stone floor. Barely getting to his feet, he says that he has never seen the boss hit with such powerful attacks from the very beginning. Vincent analyzes what is happening and is surprised that his partner's armor was able to withstand at least one blow from the Knights of Purity. However, the second opponent, clearly targeting him, rushes forward to not give him any chance to escape. Vincent continues to dodge, and realizes that his plan is over, and now he urgently needs to come up with a new one. To do this, he floats into the air to properly assess the situation, while the Knight of Purity looks at him. Another attack follows, which our hero easily dodges. This is followed by another series of powerful swings of the blade, but it also turns out to be unsuccessful. Vincent reflects that the attacks of these knights result in constant blood loss, and even the slightest damage can lead to death. Liam starts to get upset that he's also taking damage despite not being focused. Vincent states that the Knights of Purity don't care about this, and if he is in pain, he can hide in a corner and wait for a safe moment. Liam asks Vincent how he dares to imply that he is dead weight when he only slipped. The system informs Vincent that his opponent has gone into a defensive stance to cover himself with armor. Vincent realizes he needs to be more creative with this enemy and turns to his inventory. Quite quickly, he decides to use the Spirit Rush skill to dodge the subsequent attacks. Liam returns to the fight, saying that Vincent is too useless to do any damage. Vincent muses that this kid takes the edge off the battle, meaning he's not complete trash. However, the knights do not see him as a serious threat and quickly push him back with the slightest blows. Vincent muses that the broken defense will be useless, and notes that the monster has now become stronger. Looking at his wayward partner, he realizes that this man was truly born to be beaten. Meanwhile, the giant statue begins to cast a strange spell, creating a greenish vortex of energy. The system notifies Vincent that now only he can damage this knight. Vincent says that now they can't shoot based on just one monster and must try to defeat another knight who is even bigger. At this time, the Knight of Revelation, who uses the taunt skill, rushes forward to crush his target. Along the way, this creature decides to use a skill that reduces all damage received by 95%. Vincent realizes that such daggers are completely insufficient against these targets due to their defense. Liam, meanwhile, wonders why these creatures are different from those he fought before, since the monsters without special features die in 2 hits. Meanwhile, the Knight of Revelation once again turns to his American ball to cut his opponent. Vincent realizes that the second Knight of Revelation could make this fight much more difficult if he were to enter the fray. Vincent turns around again and asks Liam if he spent all his points on defense, since he doesn't do any damage. Liam replies that this is not the case, and claims that he has improved his speaking skills through exceptional strength. Vincent calls him an idiot, and recommends not to get distracted in the middle of a fight to avoid taking unnecessary damage. Liam decides to follow this advice and immediately begins to retreat to regroup in an advantageous position. Moments later, the shockwave prevents him from completing his evasive maneuver, and he falls to the ground. Vincent states that his agile fighting style is at odds with the heavy armor, causing his movement to be limited. A moment later, one of the guards decides to use another technique that destroys everything in its path, and our heroes barely have time to dodge. Vincent also begins to scold his partner, saying that this is no place for fun and that money must be earned through sweat and blood. He also states that since his usual methods are not working, he will have to resort to the most primitive method. At this moment, he breaks away from his place in order to reach the enemy and hit him with brute force. He states that even one increase in the strength stat is enough to deal real damage. Vincent shouts that fistfighting is a favorite tactic of poor people who don't have the money to buy weapons. Liam wonders how this pathetic boy was able to throw back a heavily armored monster with just his bare hands. The Stone Knight continues his fight, but Vincent still dodges all attacks without much difficulty. He jumps from one enemy to another to take advantage of his mobility. The system notifies him that he has dealt a critical hit and stunned the enemy with a powerful attack. Vincent muses that it only took one hit to stun his opponent, and perhaps luck played a role in that. Meanwhile, another enemy rushes into battle to prevent Vincent from catching his breath and regaining his potential. A moment later, the monster's most powerful blow hits the main character and cuts him in half. Liam is very surprised by this state of affairs and says that he has never seen a person torn apart so quickly. Luckily, this turns out to be another trick from the protagonist, who pretends to be a bloody nightmare. Liam stares in surprise as Vincent reverts to his true form. He muses that his partner's damage output is too low to keep the monster aggressive. With these words, he asks his comrade to step aside and not interfere with his fight so that he can concentrate. After waiting for a certain moment, he rises into the air to deliver 2 powerful attacks at once. He carefully assesses the situation and prepares several skills to hit his opponents. To do this, he decides to use a multiple attack, dealing 3 critical hits at once to the enemy's weak point. One of the monsters completely loses its combat readiness, which plays into the hands of the main character. Vincent continues to float in the air to dodge the giant stone axe's attacks. The remaining stone knights do not think of weakening the onslaught, but this does not bother Vincent. The youth lunges forward, striking at the knight's weakened legs to throw him off balance. Liam is amazed at how accurate his ally's technique is, surpassing even the experts he hired. He asks him if he should be a beginner, trying to understand how he was able to use such complex techniques. Vincent says that as a new class fighter, he is considered a rookie, but years of fighting monsters as a scavenger have honed his skills. Liam comments that he finds this a little odd, pointing out that people usually get stronger based on items. Vincent talks about gear being just something that changes as you level up. Looking at the approaching enemies, he decides to use the Berserker skill to increase his attack speed. Vincent concludes his thought by saying that his main equipment is his body, which continues to get stronger. Enemies resort to an interesting tactic, using spiked armor to deflect damage. Liam states that it's time to shine and asks his ally not to think that he's limited to just balls because of his tank class. At the same time, he claims that he is capable of creating such an amazing spell as Lightning Arrow. For individual approaching stone monsters, he asks them to respond to the taste of his incredible lightning and takes careful aim. Vincent gets ahead of his talkative comrade and rushes forward, using the fire explosion skill. Liam watches what is happening in surprise, trying to understand when this boy managed to learn how to do magic. Vincent muses that when the spikes are activated, enemies' resistance to all elements is reduced, making it easy to land critical hits. He also decides to use the Great Flame Burst skill to hit the next enemy. Thus, he easily manages to cut off the head of one of the knights to finally destroy him. Liam wonders how Vincent was able to use the instant Great Flame Explosion skill even without casting time. He also states that melee fighters usually cannot learn elemental magic, no matter how much they want to. Vincent leaves these agitated comments unanswered and decides to destroy the next enemy. Rushing forward, he dodges an attack from a giant axe and prepares to finish what he started. This attack hits the lead rock monster, which has a damage-reflecting spike skill. The spikes immediately work. The stone knights inflict damage on themselves thanks to the tricks used by Vincent. Liam says he never expected these monsters to be so easily fooled. Vincent lands on his feet, realizing that his opponent is still standing and needs to be finished off. He realizes with irritation that Spiritual Dash is still on cooldown, so he needs to defend himself somehow. As a desperate measure of defense, he decides to summon a fairly good shield and simply take the blow. This attack is incredibly powerful and instantly deals damage that would be incompatible with the normal existence of this shield. The shockwave throws the protagonist back, and he crashes into the floor, creating a large cloud of dust. Vincent muses that the knight's attacks are unpredictable, even taking into account the player's weaknesses. Their strength surpasses any elite monster. He also understands that the attack speed of these creatures will continue to increase, and will only slow down after a successful hit. Vincent guesses that it is useless to dodge this knight's attacks for long, since he will infinitely accelerate until he strikes. Understanding the reason for the high difficulty of these monsters, Vincent decides to go all in and summons his weapon. Liam calls him an idiot and wonders if he really wanted to take a direct hit from the creature. Vincent continues to follow his hastily concocted plan and puts his hand forward to cast the England spell. At the last moment, he shoots a fireball to disrupt the enemy's attack. This fireball hits the enraged monster right in the face as he tries to figure out why his opponent is still alive. In a fit of rage, it slams a giant axe down on the spot where Vincent had just stood, but he manages to jump away. Vincent states that he did not plan to take direct damage from such creatures, as it would kill him instantly. From his point of view, the tactics for winning here are to gain superiority in speed at any cost. At that very moment, he points his finger at his target to address his deity and call upon his hands. Liam is amazed by the huge amount of skills his ally has and wonders when they will run out. The hands of the scavenger god grab the stone statue, but it is still considered alive and cannot be recycled. The stone knight is enraged by this insult and prepares to free himself from captivity. He lets out a menacing roar, and powerful energy discharges begin to emanate from his